Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the scanner displays with growing concern. The ship had been exploring the outer edges of the Kepler 442 system for 3 weeks when they detected the first signs of alien technology. What they found changed everything humans thought they knew about their place in the universe. The alien structures floated in the upper atmosphere of a massive gas giant, defying every law of physics Morrison knew. Crystalline cities sparkled, like jewels against the swirling orange and purple clouds below. Each city was the size of Manhattan, held aloft by some invisible force that made their scanners go crazy with readings they could not understand. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Ben Hayes from the communication station. His voice carried a mix of excitement and fear that everyone on the bridge could feel. "It's not like anything we've ever heard before." Morrison walked over to Hayes' station and listened to the strange sounds coming through the speakers. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The transmission sounded like music mixed with whale songs, but underneath it all was something that felt like language. Complex patterns repeated and changed, creating a symphony that somehow felt like words. "Can we respond?" Morrison asked. "I don't know, sir. Our computers are trying to find patterns, but this is completely different from human communication. It's like they're speaking in colors and emotions instead of words." Dr. Lisa Carter, the ship's diplomatic specialist, pushed forward from the back of the bridge. She had been studying the transmission data for the past hour, and her face showed the strain of trying to solve an impossible puzzle. "Captain, I think they're trying to establish peaceful contact," she said. "The mathematical sequences in their transmission match universal constants. They're showing us they understand physics and want to communicate." Morrison nodded, but his military training made him cautious. First contact with an alien species was the most important moment in human history, and he could not afford to make mistakes that might endanger his crew or humanity itself. "Prepare a response using the same mathematical patterns," he ordered. "Keep it simple. Show them we understand basic mathematics and physics." The crew worked for 2 hours crafting a response. They sent prime numbers, mathematical constants, and basic physics equations translated into the musical language the aliens seemed to use. Then they waited. The response came faster than expected, and it was not what anyone hoped for. The alien transmission was harsh and dismissive. Even without understanding the words, the tone was clear. It felt like being told to go away by someone who thought you were not worth their time. The beautiful music was gone, replaced by sharp, cutting sounds that made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. "They're not happy with us," Hayes said, stating what everyone already knew. Carter frowned as she studied the new transmission. "It's worse than that. They're treating us like we're primitive. The mathematical concepts they're sending back are things a human child would learn in school. They're talking down to us." Before Morrison could respond, the ship's proximity alarms began screaming. 3 alien vessels had appeared on their scanners, moving toward the New Horizon at incredible speed. Each ship was a work of art, looking more like living crystal than metal and machinery. They were also much larger than the human vessel. "They're surrounding us," reported Commander Sarah Walsh from the tactical station. "Their technology is far beyond ours, Captain. Our weapons would be useless if they decide to attack." Morrison felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His orders from Earth Command were clear in situations like this. Establish contact if possible, but protect the ship and crew above all else. The safe choice would be to retreat and report back to Earth. But this was humanity's first chance to join a larger galactic community, and he did not want to waste it. "Open a channel," he ordered. "I want to speak to them directly." Carter stepped forward. "Captain, let me handle this. Diplomacy is my job, and one wrong word could start a war we cannot win." Morrison looked at the alien ships on his screen. They had stopped moving but remained in attack formation around the New Horizon. Whatever decision he made in the next few minutes would echo through human history forever. "Do it," he said to Carter, "but I want to be ready to run if things go bad." Carter moved to the communication station and began composing a message. She used the musical language the aliens preferred, but kept the content simple and peaceful. She identified the New Horizon as an exploration vessel from Earth, explained that humans were new to space travel, and requested permission to learn about the alien culture. The response came immediately, and it was not what anyone expected. The aliens, who called themselves Zephyrians, transmitted detailed scans of human technology, but instead of showing interest or respect, their message was filled with what could only be described as disgust. They saw human metal ships as ugly scars on the beauty of space. They viewed human technology as primitive and destructive. The Zephyrian commander, speaking through translated harmonics, made their position clear. Humans were too young and crude to be worthy of contact with advanced civilizations. They should return to their small corner of the galaxy and not venture into space controlled by their betters. Carter tried to negotiate, explaining that humans were eager to learn and contribute to galactic society. But the Zephyrians cut off communication and began moving away, leaving the New Horizon alone with a clear message: humanity was not welcome among the stars. Morrison stared at the retreating alien ships and felt something cold settle in his stomach. Humanity had dreamed of joining a galactic community for centuries. They had imagined sharing knowledge, trading cultures, and exploring the universe together with other intelligent species. Instead, they had found a universe where being different meant being considered inferior. The stars were not waiting to welcome humanity with open arms. They were guarded by beings who saw humans as nothing more than cosmic children playing with dangerous toys. The dream of galactic brotherhood had become humanity's first lesson in cosmic prejudice. Dr. Lisa Carter spent 3 weeks studying everything the New Horizon had recorded about the Zephyrians. What she discovered made her stomach turn and changed everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. The Zephyrians were not just proud and dismissive. They were slavers. Hidden in their beautiful crystal cities were thousands of other beings who served them without choice. Carter found the evidence in the deep scans the ship had taken during first contact. Energy signatures that did not match Zephyrian biology, movement patterns that suggested forced labor, communication frequencies that carried desperation instead of the musical harmony the Zephyrians used. Captain Morrison needs to see this, Carter told her assistant, Dr. Kevin Walsh. She had been working with him to decode the alien signals, and what they found was horrifying. Morrison arrived in Carter's lab an hour later, looking tired from dealing with reports from other human colonies. The news from across human space was all bad. Every attempt at alien contact had failed in similar ways. "Show me what you found," Morrison said, settling into a chair beside Carter's workstation. Carter activated her display and showed him the scan results. The Zephyrians have enslaved at least 3 different species. These beings here, she pointed to a section of data, are called the Keth. They're silicon-based life forms who live naturally in asteroid belts. The Zephyrians have forced them to mine rare crystals for their cities. The display changed to show different energy signatures. These are the Mordai. They're aquatic creatures who process water and atmospheric gases. The Zephyrians use them as living filtration systems. They treat them like equipment, not living beings. Morrison studied the data with growing anger. "How do you know they're slaves and not willing workers?" Walsh stepped forward with another set of readings. "The stress indicators are off the charts, Captain. These beings are in constant fear. Their communication patterns show signs of trauma and despair. No one chooses to live like this." Carter pulled up more information on her screen. "It gets worse. I've been monitoring Zephyrian communication since they left us. They're not unique in this behavior. The galaxy operates on a hierarchy system where technologically advanced species dominate less developed ones." She showed Morrison a chart she had compiled from intercepted alien transmissions. "Look at this. Every species we've detected ranks other species based on their technology and what they call evolutionary sophistication. The Zephyrians think they're near the top of this system." "Where do humans rank?" Morrison asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Dead last," Carter replied. "We're newcomers with what they consider primitive technology. In their system, that makes us automatically inferior to everyone else. We have no rights, no voice, and no chance of being treated as equals." Morrison stood up and walked to the lab's window, looking out at the stars. He had always dreamed they would find friends among those stars. Instead, they had found a universe built on the idea that might makes right and different means inferior. "Sir, there's more," Walsh said quietly. "We've been receiving reports from other human colonies. The same pattern is everywhere." Morrison turned back to face them. "What do you mean?" Carter activated a communication screen that showed reports from across human space. Colony ship Henderson tried to establish trade with the Hive Collective. The insectoid species refused to even acknowledge human existence. They sent drones to chase the ship away without any communication at all. Another report appeared on screen. The agricultural colony on New Kansas encountered the Verdanians, plant-based life forms with cities that grow instead of being built. The colonists tried for weeks to establish contact. The Verdanians acted like humans were invisible. Walsh added more reports. "It's the same story everywhere, Captain. The galaxy has a rigid social order, and humans are at the bottom. Species only talk to other species they consider their equals or superiors. Everyone else gets ignored or enslaved." Morrison felt his hopes for humanity's future among the stars crumbling. "How long has this system been in place?" "Based on what we can decode from alien transmissions, thousands of years," Carter answered. "Maybe longer. There are references to something called the architects who supposedly established the original hierarchy, but they disappeared long ago." The communication system activated, showing an incoming priority message from Earth Command. Admiral Patricia Brooks appeared on screen, looking as frustrated as Morrison felt. "Captain, we need answers," Brooks said without wasting time on pleasantries. "Every colony ship, every exploration vessel, every attempt at alien contact has failed. The aliens won't trade with us, won't talk to us, and some are actively hostile. What's going on out there?" Morrison looked at Carter and Walsh before responding. "Admiral, we've discovered that the galaxy operates on a caste system. Species are ranked by technology and supposed evolutionary advancement. Humans are considered too primitive for meaningful contact." Brooks frowned. "That's discrimination on a galactic scale." "It's worse than discrimination," Carter interrupted. "It's systematic oppression. Advanced species enslave less developed ones. The entire galactic civilization is built on the idea that some forms of life are worth more than others." Walsh stepped forward. "Admiral, I have a theory about why this system exists. Prejudice might be a universal survival mechanism. When species first develop intelligence, they need to quickly identify threats and allies. But when that instinct combines with advanced technology and interstellar travel, it becomes a tool for oppression instead of survival." Brooks considered this information. "So you're telling me that humanity has entered a galaxy where we're automatically considered inferior because we're new?" "Yes," Morrison replied. "And unless we find a way to change this system, humanity will either be enslaved like the other species or forced to stay isolated in our own small corner of space." Carter looked at both Morrison and the screen showing Admiral Brooks. "There might be a way to change things, but it would require doing something no species in galactic history has ever tried." "What's that?" Brooks asked. "We treat everyone as equals regardless of their technology or development level. We refuse to accept the hierarchy and show other species that there's another way to live among the stars." Morrison understood what she was suggesting, and it scared him. "You're talking about challenging an entire galactic civilization. I'm talking about showing them that prejudice doesn't have to be the foundation of interstellar society," Carter replied. "Humans learn to overcome prejudice on Earth. Maybe we can teach that lesson to the galaxy." Brooks nodded slowly from the screen. "It's dangerous, but it might be our only chance at a real future among the stars. Begin developing protocols for equal contact with all species, regardless of their supposed rank in this hierarchy." As the transmission ended, Morrison realized that humanity's greatest challenge was not mastering space travel or developing better technology. Their greatest challenge was teaching an entire galaxy that different did not mean inferior. Dr. Lisa Carter made a decision that would change galactic history forever. Instead of trying to contact the Zephyrian leaders who had dismissed humanity as inferior, she chose to reach out directly to their slaves. The idea came to her while studying the energy patterns from the Keth mining operations. These silicon-based beings worked in the asteroid belts, harvesting rare crystals for their Zephyrian masters. But something in their work patterns suggested they were far more intelligent than the Zephyrians claimed. "Kevin, look at this," Carter called to Dr. Walsh, pointing at her analysis screen. "The mining operations aren't random. The Keth are following mathematical patterns that are incredibly complex. This isn't mindless labor." Walsh studied the data, and his eyes widened. "These equations are more advanced than anything we use for navigation. They're not just mining efficiently. They're solving mathematical problems that would challenge our best scientists." Carter felt excitement building in her chest. What if the Keth aren't primitive slaves? What if they're actually more advanced than the Zephyrians in some ways? "That would explain why they hide their intelligence," Walsh replied. "If the Zephyrians knew how smart the Keth really are, they might see them as a threat instead of just tools." Carter made her choice. She would break every diplomatic protocol and contact the Keth directly, without permission from the Zephyrians or authorization from Captain Morrison. She spent 2 days crafting a message using the mathematical language she had observed in Keth mining patterns. The message was simple but revolutionary. She identified herself as a representative of humanity, acknowledged the Keth as intelligent beings deserving of respect, and offered to establish communication as equals. The response came within hours, and it changed everything. The Keth leader, who translated his name as Stonesinger, replied with mathematics so beautiful and complex that Carter cried when she finally understood it. He had been waiting for centuries for someone to recognize his people as more than slave labor. "We have hidden our true abilities for over 800 years, Stonesinger's translated message explained. "The Zephyrians believe we are simple, rock dwellers who can only follow basic instructions. If they knew we could think and create, they would destroy us completely, rather than risk rebellion." Carter learned that the Keth possessed mathematical and engineering abilities that surpassed most galactic species. They had been forced to pretend ignorance while secretly developing technologies their masters could never imagine. The crystals they mined were not just rare materials, but components for advanced devices the Keth designed but could never use. "We will share our knowledge with your people," Stonesinger offered. "In exchange, we ask only for recognition that we are alive and capable of thought. No species has ever offered us this basic dignity." Carter realized she was making first contact with a civilization that had been hidden for centuries. But her unauthorized communication did not go unnoticed. Captain Morrison found her in the communications lab at 3 in the morning, surrounded by complex mathematical displays and translation programs. "Dr. Carter, what exactly are you doing?" Morrison asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected. Carter turned to face him, knowing she was about to end her career. "I'm establishing diplomatic relations with the Keth, Captain. They're not primitive slaves, they're one of the most mathematically advanced species we've encountered." Morrison stared at the displays showing Keth mathematical concepts. Even without understanding the specifics, he could see the elegance and complexity of their work. "You contacted them without authorization?" "Yes, sir. And they've agreed to share technology with us in exchange for treating them as equals." "Captain, they've been pretending to be stupid for 8 centuries to survive. We could be their first real allies." Before Morrison could respond, the ship's alert system activated. 3 Zephyrian vessels had appeared near the New Horizon, moving fast and broadcasting angry messages. Lieutenant Hayes hurried into the lab. "Captain, the Zephyrians are demanding we surrender Dr. Carter immediately. They say she has violated sacred protocols by communicating with their property." Carter felt her stomach drop. Property. They literally consider the Keth to be objects they own. Morrison read the Zephyrian demands on his communication device. They wanted Carter handed over for punishment and all records of her contact with the Keth destroyed. If humanity refused, they would consider it an act of war against the established galactic order. "Captain," Carter said quietly, "there's something else you need to know. The Mordai have also contacted me." Morrison turned to stare at her. "The aquatic species the Zephyrians use for water processing? They're not just processing water. They're biotechnology specialists who understand cellular biology better than any species in the galaxy. They've been forced to hide their knowledge, just like the Keth. They want to share medical advances with humanity in exchange for recognition as intelligent beings. The implications hit Morrison like a physical blow. You're telling me that multiple enslaved species have been secretly contacting us? It's bigger than that, Captain. Word is spreading through networks of oppressed species across this entire sector. For the first time in galactic history, someone is treating them as equals, instead of property or tools. The Zephyrian ships moved closer, their weapons systems powering up. Morrison had minutes to make a decision that would determine humanity's future in the galaxy. He could surrender Carter and maintain peace with the established powers, or he could protect her and risk war with species whose technology far exceeded human capabilities. But as he thought about the Keth, hiding their intelligence for centuries, and the Mordai pretending to be simple biological filters, Morrison realized this was about more than diplomacy. This was about whether humanity would join a galactic system built on oppression or stand for something better. Lieutenant Hayes, send a message to the Zephyrians, Morrison ordered. Tell them that Dr. Carter is under the protection of the human government and will not be surrendered. Tell them that humanity recognizes all intelligent species as equals, regardless of their current political status. Carter looked at Morrison with surprise and gratitude. Captain, they could destroy us. Maybe, Morrison replied, watching the Zephyrian ships on his display. But if we surrender you now, we become part of the system that keeps entire civilizations enslaved. That's not the future I want for humanity. The Zephyrian response was immediate and furious. They declared that humanity had chosen to become enemies of galactic civilization by protecting criminals and encouraging rebellion among rightful property. But as their threats filled the communication channels, other signals began reaching the New Horizon. The Keth were broadcasting messages of support. The Mordai were sharing technical data as a gesture of alliance. Across the sector, enslaved species were beginning to hope that freedom might actually be possible. Morrison realized that Carter had not just made contact with alien species. She had started a revolution that would reshape the galaxy forever. Captain Morrison's decision to protect Dr. Carter triggered a chain reaction that shook the galaxy to its core. Within hours of his refusal to surrender her to the Zephyrians, the impossible began happening across multiple star systems. The Keth, inspired by humanity's willingness to defend them, stopped pretending to be simple miners. For the first time in 800 years, they openly rebelled against their Zephyrian masters. Using mathematical knowledge they had hidden for centuries, they calculated precise strike points to disable Zephyrian mining operations without destroying the asteroid habitats they called home. Stonesinger's message to Captain Morrison was brief but powerful. Your species has shown us that freedom is possible. We will no longer bow to those who see us as property. At the same time, the Mordai launched coordinated attacks on Zephyrian water processing facilities. But instead of destroying them, the aquatic beings used their advanced biotechnology to transform the systems. Within hours, the crystal cities that had floated majestically above the gas giant began losing altitude as their life support systems failed. Dr. Carter watched the rebellion unfold from the New Horizons Communications Center, feeling both amazed and terrified by what she had started. Captain, we're receiving messages from 17 different species across this sector. They're all asking for our support in breaking free from their oppressors. Morrison studied the tactical display showing Zephyrian ships rushing to respond to rebellions on multiple worlds. How many species are enslaved in this system alone? At least 23 that we can identify, Dr. Walsh reported from his analysis station. And they're all communicating with each other now. They've been building secret networks for generations, waiting for someone to give them hope. The hope came in the form of more human ships. Captain Amy Brooks, commanding the research vessel Deep Explorer, had been studying the Verdanians when news of the rebellion reached her. The plant-based species that humans thought were ignoring them had actually been watching every move humanity made. Captain Morrison, this is Brooks, came the transmission from the Deep Explorer. You need to hear what I've discovered about the Verdanians. Morrison opened the channel, grateful to hear from another human commander in the chaos. What did you find, Amy? They're not plants, Jake. They're not even close to what we thought they were. Brooks's voice carried excitement and disbelief. The Verdanians have been pretending to be simple vegetation while actually possessing one of the most advanced understanding of physics in the galaxy. The revelation hit Morrison like a physical blow. What do you mean? I mean they've been hiding from every other species by pretending to be trees and flowers. They developed this camouflage millions of years ago when the first galactic hierarchies formed. They saw what happened to species that showed their intelligence, so they chose to hide instead. Dr. Carter leaned forward to listen. How advanced are they really? They understand space-time manipulation in ways that make our best scientists look like children playing with blocks, Brooks replied. They could have dominated the galaxy if they wanted to, but they chose isolation and safety instead. Implications were staggering. Humanity had stumbled into a galaxy where the most powerful species were hiding from those who claimed to rule, while the real rulers were often less advanced than those they oppressed. Captain Brooks, are the Verdanians willing to help us? Morrison asked. They're terrified, but they're also hopeful. They've been watching the rebellion start, and they think this might finally be their chance to stop hiding. They want to meet with human leaders to discuss an alliance. Morrison realized that humanity had become the catalyst for something much bigger than first contact. They were accidentally triggering the collapse of a galactic system that had oppressed countless species for thousands of years. The Zephyrians, faced with rebellions across their territory and the loss of their slave workforce, made a desperate decision. They contacted other ruling species across the galaxy, calling for a united response to what they called the human contamination. Captain, we're detecting massive fleet movements, Lieutenant Hayes reported with worry in his voice. Multiple alien species are sending ships toward human colonies. This is bigger than just the Zephyrians now. Carter studied the incoming intelligence reports. They're treating us like a disease that needs to be cured. Our idea that all species should be treated as equals is spreading faster than they can contain it. The situation became more dangerous when the insectoid Hive Collective, which had previously ignored humanity completely, began attacking human settlements near their territory. Their message was clear through their actions. Any species that encouraged equality would be destroyed before they could spread their dangerous ideas further. But for every attack on human colonies, 2 more enslaved species declared their freedom. The galaxy's oppressed had found their voice, and they were using it to demand the rights that had been denied to them for millennia. Morrison received an urgent communication from Admiral Brooks on Earth. Captain, we're tracking fleet movements from over 40 different alien species. Some are coming to attack us, but others are asking for our help in fighting their oppressors. We're accidentally in the middle of a galactic civil war. Admiral, humanity never wanted to start a war, Morrison replied. We just wanted to be accepted as equals. I know, Jake. But sometimes doing the right thing has consequences we never expected. The question now is whether we stand with the oppressed species who are looking to us for leadership, or try to find a way to make peace with the established powers. Carter interrupted their conversation. Captains, you need to see this. She activated a display showing long-range sensor readings. Something big is coming. Multiple ships, but they're not matching any known alien designs. The ships appeared on their screens like ghosts materializing from deep space. They were enormous, ancient-looking vessels that seemed to bend light around them. As they moved closer, every alien fleet in the sector stopped fighting and began retreating. Who are they? Morrison asked, though something deep in his mind already suspected the answer. Based on the energy signatures and the reaction from all the other species, Walsh said slowly, I think we're about to meet the architects. The mysterious beings who had supposedly created the galactic hierarchy system were returning after thousands of years of absence. Their timing could not be coincidental. The galaxy was tearing itself apart over the question of equality, and the species that had started it all were coming back. Morrison looked at Carter, knowing that her simple decision to treat enslaved species as equals had brought them to this moment. Humanity had broken something that had seemed permanent and unchangeable. Now they would discover whether the consequences would destroy them or transform the galaxy into something better. The revolution they had started was no longer just about freedom for oppressed species. It was about the fundamental question of whether different meant inferior, and whether the galaxy could learn to embrace diversity instead of fearing it. The architect ships filled the space around the Kepler 442 system, like ancient monuments appearing from nowhere. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when humans looked at them directly. For the first time since the rebellions began, every species in the galaxy stopped fighting and waited to see what would happen next. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching as alien fleets that had been trying to destroy each other minutes before now fled to safe distances. The Zephyrians, who had seemed so powerful and arrogant, were broadcasting frantic prayers to beings they clearly worshipped as gods. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Hayes announced. "It's coming from the largest architect vessel." The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything Morrison had ever heard. It was ancient and tired, but also filled with something that sounded like relief. "I am Prime Observer of the Architect Council," the voice said in perfect, human English. "We have watched the events of recent days with great interest. After 3,000 years of absence, we have returned to witness something we thought impossible." Dr. Carter stepped forward, her heart racing with the magnitude of this moment. "Prime Observer, we are representatives of humanity. We never intended to cause galactic upheaval. We only wanted to treat all species with respect." "Dr. Carter," Prime Observer replied, somehow knowing her name without introduction. "You have accomplished something that we failed to achieve in 10,000 years of trying. You have shown the galaxy that prejudice is a choice, not a law of nature." Morrison found his voice. "You created the hierarchy system that oppresses so many species. Why did you abandon it?" The answer came with a weight of ancient sadness. "We did not create the hierarchy intentionally. When we first achieved interstellar travel, we tried to help younger species develop their potential. But our intervention was misunderstood. Species began ranking themselves based on their relationship to us, rather than their own worth." "Prime," Observer continued, "we watched as our desire to help became the foundation for oppression. Species closer to our technology level claimed superiority over others. Those we helped first enslaved those we helped later. We had created a system where advancement meant the right to dominate others." Dr. Walsh stepped into the conversation. "So you disappeared because you were disgusted with what you had caused?" "We left because we realized our presence made the problem worse. As long as the architects existed as the ultimate authority, the hierarchy would remain. We hoped that in our absence, species would learn to see each other as equals." Carter understood now. "But it got worse instead of better." "Yes. Without our guidance, the system became more rigid and cruel. Species forgot that we had never intended them to oppress each other. They only remembered that some were considered higher than others." Morrison looked at the displays showing rebellions across dozens of star systems. "Why are you returning now?" "Because humanity has proven that the cycle can be broken. You entered the galaxy with the assumption that intelligence deserves respect regardless of its form or origin. You saw enslaved species and chose to recognize their worth instead of their status. This is what we hoped all species would learn." The Zephyrian fleet leader suddenly broadcast on all frequencies, his voice filled with desperation. "Great architects, these humans have corrupted the sacred order. They encourage rebellion among rightful property. They must be stopped before they destroy everything." Prime Observer's response was swift and final. "Commander, you have misunderstood our teachings for millennia. We never declared any species to be property of another. We never established a right for the advanced to enslave the developing. You created these beliefs from your own fears and desires for power." The silence that followed was deafening. Across the galaxy, species that had justified oppression by claiming divine mandate suddenly found themselves without that authority. "The old system ends today," Prime Observer announced. "We offer all species a choice. Continue the hierarchy of oppression that has brought nothing but suffering, or join a new community based on cooperation and mutual respect." Carter seized the moment. What would this new community look like? "That is for all species to decide." "Together," Prime Observer replied. "The architects will no longer lead or guide. We will participate as equals, sharing our knowledge while learning from others. The galaxy's future must be built by all its inhabitants, not dictated by the oldest or most powerful. The Verdanians were the first to respond, emerging from there, hiding after millions of years. We accept this new path. We offer our understanding of physics to help all species explore the universe safely. Stonesinger spoke for the Keth. We will share our mathematical knowledge freely, as long as no species is forced to hide their abilities to survive. One by one, species across the galaxy made their choice. The enslaved declared their freedom. The hidden revealed themselves. Even some of the former oppressors, seeing their justifications crumble, chose cooperation over continued domination. But not all accepted the change. The Hive Collective and several other hierarchical species rejected the new order and retreated to distant systems, vowing to maintain the old ways in isolation. "Let them go," Prime Observer said when Morrison expressed concern about the holdouts. "Change cannot be forced. They will learn in time, or they will remain isolated until they choose differently." 3 months later, Captain Morrison attended the founding ceremony of the Cooperative Commonwealth. Representatives from over 200 species gathered on a neutral station built by combined efforts of former slaves and masters working together. Dr. Carter, now serving as humanity's first galactic ambassador, delivered the opening address. "We gather not as superior and inferior, but as different expressions of intelligence united by our common desire to explore, learn, and grow." The ceremony concluded with a demonstration that would have been impossible under the old system. Keth, mathematicians worked alongside Verdanian physicists and human engineers to activate a new type of faster-than-light communication network. Mordai biotechnology interfaced with Zephyrian crystal systems, creating something none of them could have built alone. Morrison watched from the observation deck as species that had hidden their abilities for millennia began sharing knowledge freely. The galaxy was transforming from a rigid hierarchy into something that resembled a vast university, where every species had something to teach and something to learn. Prime Observer approached Morrison as the ceremony ended. "You should be proud, Captain. Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not your technology or your military strength. It was your simple belief that different does not mean inferior." Morrison looked out at the diverse gathering of beings working together. "What happens now? Now the real work begins. Building a society based on equality is harder than maintaining one based on oppression. But if today is any indication, the galaxy is ready for that challenge." As Morrison returned to Earth to report on humanity's new role in galactic affairs, he carried with him the knowledge that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply treating others with the respect they deserve. Humanity had entered the stars hoping to find their place in the universe. Instead, they had helped the universe find a better version of itself.